All right, we're back from Miami. We got lots to cover today. We'll recap the Week 14 DFS slate, had a few lineups on DraftKings. Of course, the Dawg Bowl live final. We can look at some of those winning lineups. We got some underdog action yesterday as well in the draft streets. And then finally, we have one more night, two more games that settle and determine the best Ball Mania IV playoffs. We'll see what sweats we have going. I'm Pete. This is the Portfolio Review.
I suffer from a debilitating condition known as atrophic chokitis.
Peter's one of the greatest depositors I've ever seen.
Trust the process. Let's go. Let's go.
I got auto matched with Levitan. This is bullshit.
If I just go the other way in that 66, I win all the money. All the money.
If I had 150 lineups, I'd win too.
Process over results.
Make a bitch go crazy. I don't know which one of these my baby. Bust out AP, close 5 bullets in your head like KD. Bust it, bitch go bust it. And I had 10 pints with me in Russia.
Hey everyone.
Has anyone found Pete's voice? I think it's still partying on South Beach. Star Kindler noticing my gravel voice to serenade us into the playoffs. Yes, I have not quite gotten to my voice back yet. And I was thinking of making tea, but I just don't know if a tea pour, would a tea pour have hit as hard as the coffee pour hits? I don't know. Maybe I should have just gotten my kettle with the hot water and done that. But no, we do have the coffee going. We do need to feed the ducks. It feels like a feed the ducks morning. I'm torn. I wanted it to be like a very chilled out, relaxed, maybe not shot out of a cannon type of show as I ease back into this week. And then I'm looking here and seeing how much stuff we have to cover. And I also want to hit on some of the Dawg Bowl stuff. So we're going to have to be efficient with our time today. So let's get the ducks fed. And I will get the coffee poured. Here we go. I am definitely running on fumes today. I landed at 1 last night. I don't think I was in bed until like 2. But yeah, we're gonna persist. We are going to push forward, and I will probably not be making it past the first quarter of tonight's games tonight. But we will get through this day. I see we have a polarized range of emotions about yesterday's action in the chat. Brady says, GM, DFS is so dumb. I hate it here. And then Brad says, great week. Took down my first GPP of the season. Play the best plays in print. There it is. The duality of man, the duality of a GPP, bro. You win some, you lose some. Yes, Robert, of course I was going to be here to deliver a stream. Let's see. How are we doing? Ashton says DFS is hard. It certainly is. Look at this. Everyone was on opposite ends of the spectrum yesterday. Best week of the season so far for me, which is to say I barely min cash. Yeah, I had a couple min cashes yesterday. Like I said, lots of ground to cover today. So let's dive right in. Because yesterday we were so underdog focused. Saturday night, we had the live final drafts. And then in the morning, we did do the cram show, but we were still recapping the Dawg Bowl. And I actually, normally my process for GPP lineups is I'm IK being a bit. I'm getting in the players I like, the spots I really like. And then I'm kind of running those lineups through the solver sims, seeing if what I'm doing checks out at least within the realm of not being an awful lineup, using that as a safety net. I didn't really have the time this past week to really kind of dig in and do a lot of practice builds like I normally do. So I trusted the sims more, and I was just running stuff, seeing what was popping best for the various spy contests I was playing. So I would say of all the weeks, this was the week I manually intervened with my lineups the least. I was basically just picking off the lineups that I liked the best, that were simming out well for these spy contests, and ended up min cashing a couple of them. No big sweats. It was a little frustrating, and I'll recap a couple of these lineups here. I know on the cram show, I really wanted to play the Desmond Ridder double stacks. And I was just like, man, if Pitts is going to be super chalky and London, I just don't know if a chalky Desmond Ridder vomit stack is the way to go. Obviously, that ended up hitting phenomenally. I did get Drake London into this lineup here. But that was kind of one of my only regrets because I did really like the Desmond Ridder stuff. I had a decent amount of Drake London on Underdog as well, but chickened off of it mainly because one of the things that was really popping in the solver, and I talked about this on the cram, was the pay up QB options. You could really feel the squeeze happening as everyone funneled to Justin Fields specifically, who ended up becoming very popular. And I could tell, hey, the ownership on Purdy's coming down. Hardly anyone's going to play Mahomes. Hardly anyone is going to play Lamar Jackson. So that was kind of where I gravitated to. I'll read off this first lineup. This was in the 200K SPY with 50K to first. 2,222 entries. I had a Chiefs onslaught, Patrick Mahomes at 6.6%, CEH at 25.3%, Rashee Rice at 33%, and then Travis Kelce at 8.5%. None of those guys hitting in a big way there. This lineup ends up cashing almost exclusively because of two picks. Drake London, who comes in at 25.6%, Evan Ingram at 1.4%. The other pieces were Christian McCaffrey, 35.6%. Trey Palmer was my punt play here to try to, get in McCaffrey, Kelce, Mahomes. He came in at 2.3%. And then I had a moderately owned Jets defense at 10.2%. And the way I did not manually intervene with this lineup is the fact that it had Evan Ingram and Travis Kelce. Like, this would have been the classic lineup I otherwise would look like. And I'm like, yeah, I like this. We got a little mini correlation with Drake London and Trey Palmer. You're able to get CMC in here. Wait, what's Evan Ingram doing here? And I guarantee I would have pivoted this to some like Josh Downs ass play. Lo and behold, sometimes you just trust the double tight end meta, and Evan Ingram pops off for 32.5 points. So this lineup ends up scoring 154.74. It finishes 328. Good enough for a classic 1.5x min cash here. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. I mean, this does, I think, go to show, like, obviously you need your core stack to hit to win a tournament, but to be able to salvage and min cash essentially because you just hit on two of the better picks in Drake London and Evan Ingram, I can't complain with that. The other main lineup I ended up having three lineups. I ended up wanting to roll out a Brock Purdy because this was another dynamic I talked about on the cram where the mid-range at wide receiver, or the higher mid-range, I should say, was going to get squeezed. And then on top of that, CMC was going to be popular. Debo, who I obviously should have had in my Brock Purdy lineup, was going to be very popular. And so what I thought was there was a ton of leverage with a Brock Purdy double stack. And one of the lineups that popped, I believe this was the highest graded lineup in the sim run I did for the large SPY. And basically I had some constraints on it. Hey, let me see a double stack and let me make sure I have two players that are sub 10%. Those are kind of the restrictions and the rules I normally use when I'm kind of, picking out lineups. And this lineup graded out the best for that specific sim field. I'll read this one out. Brock Purdy comes in at 11.5%. He was projected much higher than that. That was another thing that I was able to kind of glean from talking to everyone on the cram yesterday. It didn't seem like people were super excited about playing Purdy. I think the Geno Smith uncertainty pushed people off of that game environment. And people said, hey, I'll just play CMC. I won't bother with this game just because they don't think the Niners are going to get pushed. So I leaned into that. Purdy at 11.5%, Kyron Williams at 4.5%, Joe Mixon at 23.5%. Also had Rashee Rice in here, 33.1%. Ayuk at 8.2%. The pump play on this lineup was Rashad Bateman, 1.1%. George Kittle, 5.1%, and then Javonte Williams, who was one of my favorite plays yesterday. I was glad that the Sims liked him in this lineup, 5.9%, and then another Jets team, 9.6%. So this is another lineup very similar to the Chiefs one, right? Where if you have Debo in this, right, what you really needed was the Brock Purdy triple without CMC, and you get Debo in here, you get those 30 plus points or whatever, and then you can maybe start to, compete for a nice prize with Ayuk and Kittle, who certainly didn't flop. I mean, you get 20.6 points from Ayuk, you get 16.6 from Kittle. Purdy has a perfectly serviceable game there. But yeah, you missed the Debo ceiling there. Pretty nice balanced roster on the whole as far as the points. Like, no one really created this lineup. Even Bateman at 3,200, only getting 4.4 there doesn't hurt you too bad. Obviously, you wish that's Odell. And I do have a Lamar Jackson lineup I'll show you guys in a second. But this lineup scores 155.12 points, very similar to this other one that scored 154.74. Same deal. This one finishes in 712th place, good enough for one of the classic Pete min cashes. But yeah, did not have a lot of intervention on this one. Normally what happens to me, I'll be like, okay, I like this Brock Purdy double. And then I'll start to like nitpick some of the running backs. I'll be like, do I want to play 20% own Joe Mixon? And then I tweak it. But again, born out of necessity of not having enough time yesterday to tweak stuff with all that was going on in Miami, I just stayed true to how the Sims spit these out. Ended up working out, not IK being guys like Kyron Williams and Joe Mixon, who were projecting well for a ton of touches there. And you end up banking almost 40 combined points from those guys. Feel good about that. Let's quickly just check out what won first place in the Big Spy here for 100,000. Jake Browning. This one was wild just because he ended up leaving the game here, but he still drops 24.7 points. That rushing TD, he got his little tush push there, really saved his day. James Cook ended up being an awesome play. Shout out to all of you guys on the cram. I know I asked you guys who your favorite running back play was, and a ton of you said James Cook. To the point I thought he was going to be pretty chalky. He comes in at 6.1% here, drops 25 points. We'll talk a little bit more about James Cook when we talk Best Ball Mania. He was one of my, bigger running back positions. It's honestly just criminal, the Bills' lack of usage for James Cook up to this point. He's by far their most explosive rusher, arguably their most dynamic player in the entire offense right now, and he still has to fight for his life to get touches there when he's just electric every time he touches the ball. This lineup also has Joe Mixon, has Rashee Rice, has Deebo Samuel, who comes in at 14%. Drake London, obviously needed him yesterday. Isaiah Likely, CMC, and Raiders. And so what I'm just realizing now, this was, I guess, not unstacked, but Jake Browning with Joe Mixon. Nothing else in this game. A very interesting pairing, but I guess when you're playing this as a block of points, Jake Browning at 5,200, I guess you can kind of get away with some unconventional stacking there. And otherwise, you play the Niners through Deebo and CMC, nothing else in that game. Not a lot of correlation in this lineup. I think this is definitely a lineup I wouldn't find myself on otherwise. To me, this looks like a hand-built lineup. I can't imagine many sims or optimizers really spitting this out. Although maybe it was like it could be an optimizer type lineup because you do have a lot of chalk in here. But I feel like that's always the prism with which I view these lineups. It's, could I have ever made this lineup? Some weeks that's yes. Some weeks that's no. This feels like a lineup I never would have made, but congratulations to Flyers nonetheless on doing something I've never done, which is win first place in the SPY. GM Angelina bringing the coffee. GM Tyler. Also, yeah, shout out to Tyler, the Super Chat King. As we reflect back, we realize the real portfolio were the friends we made along the way. 'Tis the season for Cope and 2024 Hope. That has a nice ring to it, Tyler. You should patent that, Cope and Hope. Yeah, it is going to be, it really is this crazy time. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, not to get too derailed on Best Ball Mania quite yet, but just how, right now we're all full of potential, our advancing teams, and those that week 16, 1 out of 16 advance, it's going to be tough. It's going to be brutal. So yeah, I am very much bracing for these teams that we fall in love with, just really breaking our hearts. So I think that's a good lesson here for us all to balance the idea of hope and also guarding ourselves over not letting our heart get broken. Who thought that we could talk about best ball teams as if it were our love lives? But that's where we're at. In the Depsoit Kingdom contest, this was my third lineup. I mentioned this on the cram as well, that I really wanted to attack some of these higher priced quarterbacks because I thought they were getting squeezed. End up playing Lamar Jackson here. This is in the Depsoit Kingdom weekly league. So obviously when I read off these ownership percentages, they are often not necessarily reflective of some of the other contests, just because we got a crew of Gallup brainers and sharps and ownership gets pushed in weird directions. In this lineup, I had a Lamar Jackson double stack, 3.8%. I used Odell Beckham at 3.6%, Rashad Bateman at 4%. the Sims here. See how I'm using the Sims as my my out. They gave me 2 Saints players, Alvin Kamara and Juwan Johnson. Kamara comes in at 21.9% in this contest. Juwan Johnson at 1.7%. I eat the chalk on this lineup with the 2 chalkiest running back plays on the slate. Zack Moss comes in at 68% in the Deposit Kingdom League. Christian McCaffrey comes in at 42%. I didn't even quite realize, I guess, until right now that I had lock buttoned Rashee Rice, had him across all 3 lineups here. He comes in at 35%. And then what did I have here? Chargers defense at 0.2%. I was the only one sick enough to play the Chargers defense, apparently, at home versus Denver. They come in at 0.2%. This lineup does not cash. This was my worst lineup of the day. Kind of a bummer because, you know, you hit on Lamar Jackson to Odell Beckham, you know, a stack with less than 7.5% combined ownership there, but just no other league winners. I mean, this is Snowflake City. Juwan Johnson, CMC doesn't get there at his price tag. Zack Moss, man, we should talk just a second about the Zack Moss rugging, man. He torpedoed my portfolio on Underdog yesterday. I had a ton of him in Battle Royale. Thought he was mispriced all week. You know, everywhere you look, projecting as a top 5, top 6 overall option, much less at the running back position. And I mean, the workload was good. You know, he's still getting all the touches, but man, just ran really poor. The game script didn't quite break his way. Only 28 receiving yards, 28 rushing yards, 4 receptions, 9.6 points at 68%. So yeah, Zack Moss doing his best Tony Pollard impression of, can I burn people so many times that they finally capitulate and stop playing me? It'll be really funny to see who do the Colts play next week. Like, I'm just wondering, are we going to be in this same deal? Yes. Oh, they play on Saturday next week, so they won't be on the main slate. Colts at home versus the Steelers. We are all going to get suckered back into playing Zack Moss next week. I know, Alex here. Back-to-back Zack Moss rug weeks. Brutal. And you know what? It's like, it's especially cruel. I feel like it's more cruel in Underdog because on DraftKings, we're all just playing Zack Moss, you know, with 75% of our best friends. And we're all just playing like an 8v8 essentially. You know, on Underdog, it felt, I don't know, the knife is twisted a little bit more. His ADP was like 23. I was willingly trying not to select more Zack Moss, and then people would let him fall to pick 30. And I'm like, God damn it, I'll select Zack Moss again. Apparently the people knew. The people knew that Zack Moss was not the guy you needed yesterday. Go AZ Cards. Don't bet against me, but I'm doing, I got 3 straight hours of broadcasting today. I'm rolling right into XM radio after this. Trust the process. The thing is, I think you guys get in trouble with these takes. Do you know who else is not good? Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams is not good. It does not matter, though. If you're getting that amount of touches, you're going to be fine. I mean, Kyren Williams has faced the least amount of stack boxes of any running back in the NFL this year. It really does not matter. It's like we look back when Zack Moss have a 40-point game earlier this year? Were we saying he was good then? Did he regress? Was he good then and now he's bad? It doesn't matter. Running back talent at that spectrum, when you're getting that amount of touches, it doesn't matter. So yeah, I think we got to always be careful with that. I think running back talent matters when a back is only getting 12 touches. If you're only getting 12 touches and you're Keaton Mitchell versus Craig Reynolds, then I think that talent matters there. But if you're getting 20 plus touches, it doesn't matter. Thank you, Robert. Let's see here. Yeah, and Kyren has Kupp and Nakua to take him. Also, like, if we're doing, like, Coach of the Year stuff, I mean, Sean McVay, I think what Sean McVay has done there has been very, very impressive. Even Darrell Henderson had some usable games there, who was literally playing in the XFL before he got signed off the street. I can't do this running backs take. I thought we had all come around on this, like, years ago. Let's see who won the Deposit Kingdom tournament here. Dabs and Frags takes it down. Justin Fields ends up coming in at 25.7%. I definitely felt the steam on Justin Fields earlier in the week. I think even someone had commented on the video, Block Party video with JM, and was like, everyone's projecting Fields for much lower. And then every show I watch, everyone's jamming in Justin Fields. Certainly felt the steam coming. He was a great play, but I think this is a tough needle to thread in general. You know, you see Justin Fields at 25 36.7% and DJ Moore at 35.5%. So that's a hard thing, I think, long-term to be profitable. Like if you're playing that kind of stack at that ownership week after week, this ended up like a lot of weeks being a week where you needed some of those chalk pieces. Deebo Samuel in this lineup, 15.9%, does have Zack Moss at 68.1%, but gets James Cook at 13.8. You get Drake London one-off at 20.7%. Cole Kmet double stacked with Fields. I do think that was the way to do it because I think most people were probably skinny stacking Fields with Moore. So getting Cole Kmet in there at 14.3%, always correlating that tight end, specifically in the small field stuff, I think makes a ton of sense. And, regrettably now looking at my Lamar Jackson lineup that didn't have Isaiah Likely, I'm going to go ahead and blame the Sims on that one. And then you have Rashee Rice here and 49ers defense. So, not a ton of unique levers pulled here. It's really adding Cole Kmet to a chalky Justin Fields stack and then playing James Cook as a not, hyper popular running back play. Otherwise, this is a very straightforward team. And then you do use some of that extra salary to pay up to get to 49ers defense. And that's the other thing, right? You look at the highest scoring players, the most expensive players on that slate, CMC, Keenan Allen, those guys don't get there. And so if you're going more mid-range here, Deebo 6,800, DJ Moore 6,500, Rashee Rice 5,400, just look at the band on salaries for his running backs and wide receivers, all between 4,600 and 6,800. So going middle of the road there and then using some of that extra change to get up to 49ers defense. Congratulations to Dabs and Frags on taking down the Deposit Kingdom tournament. DMO Zone comes in second with the correct Brock Purdy double stack, which is Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. Also has Drake London and Rashee Rice. Another one of those weeks where, the chalk one-off wide receivers just smashing Rashee Rice, Drake London, and then goes double tight end here. I like that double tight end. Isaiah Likely at 3,500 alongside George Kittle. Again, you think about Isaiah Likely at 3,500, how he projected relative to some of those other wide receivers down there. Like I had a lineup with Rashad Bateman. I had a lineup with Trey Palmer. I think you could certainly argue, probably rightfully so, that Isaiah Likely projected better than those guys. Maybe you could quibble on whether he has a ceiling that they do. But of course he does, right? We see him on that touchdown. He leaks out kind of a nifty play design where they bring him in motion, almost kind of like a running back wheel route. And the entire defense just lost him. He waltzes into the end zone there. But yeah, another big part of the meta this year, the chalk hits, the double tight ends hit. And pretty impressive for DMO Zone here to be able to take this down despite only getting less than 25 combined points from Alvin Kamara and Zack Moss. But it doesn't matter when you're hitting on a 37 burger from Deebo, a 32 burger from Drake London, and a $3,500 19-point play from your flex there in Isaiah Likely. It really is crazy how double tight end is killing it. And what's surprising to me is how the different varieties of it. Like this, I would call more of a classic double tight end build where you're essentially using George Kittle as a wide receiver. You're saying George Kittle, 5,900, pretty fair price to pay for, I think, his ceiling combination there. And it would be a similar price you would pay for a Cortland Sutton, right? Or I'm trying to think of other wide receivers who would traditionally be in that range. Like Christian Kirk was always priced in that range. I think you could argue George Kittle's pretty comparable there. And then you're basically treating that flex spot as a punt wide receiver. And just you happen to be using it at tight end. And there has been this pricing disparity where the cheaper tight ends, I think in general as a cohort, have been projecting better than the wide receivers in that same price range. And I wonder if DraftKings would ever tighten that up and kind of fix that, because it has led to a ton of two tight end builds popping, and it's certainly been exploitable. But it is funny how myself included are still so anchored to not liking two tight end lineups. Maybe it's just listening to Levitan over the years and him never wanting to do two tight end lineups, even in cash, much less tournaments. And that's just deeply, seeped into my way of thinking, but I'm going to continue to kind of trust the numbers, the sims, the optimizers, and be more willing to it, because it does just make so much sense that a guy like Isaiah Likely as the starting tight end tethered to Lamar Jackson is going to project better for the dust ball wide receivers going there. Is the mic lagging for others? Am I lagging? I feel like my stuff has been good. Let me know in the chat if I'm not. Easy. Hate to be the one to report this, but I have to forward to my DK rep to refund for burning the flex. That is true. Isaiah Likely did play earlier. You could have swapped George Kittle to God knows who. It could have been Javonte Williams. And this user DMO zone, it's honestly a shame. And the fact that I was even giving kudos here after burning the flex, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. Now someone says my mic is weird today. It might just be my voice, guys. I don't have a voice. I'm checking my mic settings. I got the exact same mic settings that I always have. I should be good there. I'm pretty sure it's just my voice. Mic was cracking. That's my voice cracking. I promise you. Man, brutal. Yeah, is this true here? CJ Stroud done for the season? Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like Justin Herbert's probably going to be done for the year as well. I mean, just a brutal run out with injuries. I'm assuming, even though there's been some kind of encouraging news about Justin Jefferson, it's like, is he really going to come back and risk this again? Is that true? All right. I apologize if I'm sharing fake news on CJ Stroud. All right. Thank you, Easy. Stroud's in concussion protocol. I don't know about done for the year. Yeah, that seems like a pretty big jump there. I'm not going to just randomly pull up fake news comments anymore. Let me just check out a couple more lineups here before we move on to some underdog stuff. Dan in third place also has a Justin Fields team that takes it down. A lot of similar players at the top of the leaderboards yesterday. Another 2 tight end lineup. Brevin Jordan, Travis Kelce here. You had to have Debo. I mean, this was just the nut wide receiver trio, right? Debo Samuel, DJ Moore, Drake London. The 3 Ds, each going off for nearly 30 points. There, Big Dan in fourth. Ooh, okay, here we go. This is a fun one to look at. This was more what I should have been doing with my Lamar Jackson lineup. He goes Lamar Jackson, Keaton Mitchell, Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely. I love that block in a tournament size like this, where you're getting 4,900 Mitchell, 5,700 Zay, 3,500 Likely. And it does go to show you how powerful like the onslaught correlation is in these smaller tournaments. Like, you could add Odell Beckham in here instead of Josh Downs, and you would have scored more points. And it would have felt weird to have like 4, Ravens, but on slates like this, where totals are low, in tournaments like this, where there's only 420 entries, if you hit on the 1 or 2 teams, and the block of points is cheap. Lamar was the only expensive guy, really. I guess you could say Zay Flowers was maybe like a smidge pricey, relative to, Odell Beckham's price and Bateman. But yeah, I think getting the running back, the cheap tight end, I really like the way this was built. And then you just hit on DJ Moore, you hit on Debo Samuel. And then, Saints D there, man. That's another one. Getting up to a $3,900 Saints defense, 0.7% there. They dropped 21. Very nice setup there. We all should have been more willing to find the money to get up to the Saints and attack Bryce Young, apparently. Mathology voice sounds great. As good as filing away many adult beverages. Yeah. I had one of those things where I was so hungover on Sunday. So I started out drinking waters, and then, it's like 2, 3 in the afternoon. And you're like, well, there's the open bar. I should probably just start having margaritas again. And now we're paying for it. All right. That's the Deposit Kingdom. I do want to hit on the Dawg Bowl a little bit, just because it was such a fun event, and there were some really interesting lineups that took it down. Shout out to John Kurek. I think I'm saying his last name right. The inaugural Dawg Bowl champ. I got his lineup pulled up here. Did have Lamar Jackson, 32.64 points, 10.7 from Jerome Ford, 13.6 from Brandon Ayuk, 24.2 from Drake London, 11.3 from Travis Kelce, and 21.5 from Cooper Kupp. And, one of the things that really stood out to me yesterday was how many landmines there were in the first round of those 12-person drafts. I mean, you really go through all of the players and there were so many duds. Obviously Travis Kelce, like, he's not killing you there, but he's certainly not helping you win a tournament. Same thing with Keenan Allen. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown flops. I mean, Alvin Kamara is kind of mid. I mean, all of these guys that you're paying for 25, 30 point ceiling really, really hurt. And the lineup that ended up finishing in second place here, Beretta James, he ended up having the optimal draft slot in hindsight because he got the 2 best first round picks, or I guess it'd be the 1-2 turn pick here, in Deebo Samuel and DJ Moore. I mean, those were the guys you wanted. Let other people take Amon-Ra St. Brown. Let other people take Justin Jefferson, Keenan Allen, Travis Kelce. You sit back and you grab Deebo Samuel and DJ Moore. He ends up doing Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua stack, gets Travis Etienne with the last pick in this draft, or the last pick of his draft here with Travis Etienne, and then had Liam piping in advice to take Dalton Kincaid here in the third round. But the Matthew Stafford to Nacua, but really just hitting on Deebo Samuel, DJ Moore. These might not seem like big point totals, but remember, this was just a 36-person final, 36 entry final. So you didn't have to have the nuts there. And I would say another common theme was, people were approaching some light correlation here, like you have a Stafford to Puka, but no one was really ripping it in on a specific game. No one was going too hard on the correlation angle. And you look at the winning lineup from John here. I mean, essentially, the only correlation here being Cooper Kupp opposite Lamar Jackson, and Cooper Kupp at 502 and Drake London at 411. I mean, those are just really, really nice picks. It's kind of the classic thing where you're buying undervalued volume at cheap prices because people don't want to deal with Desmond Ridder and the Falcons. They don't want to deal with a banged up Cooper Kupp on the road versus the Ravens. But time and time again, we see these guys that consistently can earn targets or consistently earn touches really pay off their draft slot. So shout out again to John. Really nice guy. He was sweating. I feel bad. I don't know if it was his wife or his girlfriend, but sweating with her the whole afternoon. And, he had the brutal version of the sweat, right? Where you're in first for a long time and you're watching the George Kittle teams. You're watching the Deebo Samuel teams hunt you down. Brandon Ayuk has that fumble, and I look over at John, and he just has his face in his hands because Beretta is charging up the leaderboard with Deebo Samuel here. So a brutal sweat, but he holds on. Also wanted to take a look at our guy Sacrilegious, who finished in third place. Had an awesome team. I thought he hated his draft slot, and I agreed with him. I think the 2 slot yesterday was probably the worst slot to have. He goes and grabs Keenan Allen in the first round at 102. Didn't want to take Travis Kelce or mess with, Jefferson or some of those other guys. Does come back and get George Kittle and Lamar Jackson at the 2-3 turn. Ends up stacking up Zay Flowers in the fourth round. Grabs Breece Hall in the fifth, which ended up really being a differentiator at running back at that price. And then comes back and grabs Chris Godwin. Another awesome pick yesterday. I mean, I couldn't believe it, like the target disparity between Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And I mean, people were joking about the squeaky wheel, but I couldn't believe it. We took one of those rivals where it was Mike Evans versus Chris Godwin, and Godwin was only getting a half reception head start. I was like, am I taking crazy pills? Mike Evans has just been alphaing over Chris Godwin all year. But man, shout out to the betting markets. Shout out to the projection lords who knew that Chris Godwin was going to be the better of the two yesterday. I did not see that coming. Narrowly missed a touchdown there. I mean, Sacrilegious had a few shots really to get up into first place. You can see here on the leaderboard. Let me move my camera down here. You can see on the leaderboard, John finishes 113.94, Beretta James 1.926, Sacrilegious 104.94. There was that last kind of Hail Mary play for the Chargers. I think they were at like the 40-yard line or something. And it basically was Sacrilegious could have had a walk-off win if Easton Stick would have pulled a rabbit out of his hat and found Keenan Allen for a touchdown there. And then, of course, Beretta James, just needed another Deebo or Dalton Kincaid touchdown there. The Bills had that one final play Josh Allen missed Gabe Davis on a wide open TD. So these guys were live. They needed to bink the TD, and John was just trying to hold them off. Yeah, it was great. Just even looking at the usernames here, just a really like diverse set of players as far as, guys like Beretta James, who Max Inner and Sacrilegious, our Giga Brain here, Copper Prices, shout out Copper Prices, had 2 teams here, gets 1 to finish in 9th. But then you have some guys like Jacob here, who finishes in 6th. He went on the Badge Bros, just did a couple lineups. He's the guy that was doing his laundry when he realized that he had a team that was qualifying there. Baby J had 1 bullet here. I met a guy, a kid from Auburn, who literally his friend referred him to play on Underdog to do some pick'ems. And he had $25 left in his account, and he thought he would hop in his first draft ever drunk one night, I believe at his dorm room in Auburn. Ends up winning a Dawg Bowl seat there with his girlfriend. I go, did you do any prep work or whatever? And he's like, I went and loaded in my ESPN rankings and just drafted whoever. He was a big Carolina Panthers fan, so he took Jonathan Mingo with his last pick. But yeah, just you can either read that as, holy cow, that's incredibly tilting because I devoted my entire life to trying to qualify for this. That's fair. I was in the same boat. But it is very beautiful that you can have people on wide ends of the spectrum getting here to compete for a $200,000 top prize. Top-notch event from Underdog. I think a really good proof of concept. You can certainly see how this can be bigger and better in future years, and I'm excited to see what they roll out next year. Had an awesome time hanging out with the Badge Bros, all the Underdog people, so many people from the Depsoit Kingdom. We had fun photos. I posted one on Twitter last night. Got to meet so many people here. Let me see if I can pull up this photo in case you guys aren't on Twitter there. We got Chad Mashke from the Badge Bros, obviously John Warner. We had Crutches here. Crutches was like a calm, cool operator. I thought he was going to tilt a little harder in person like he tilts online. He handled it well. Sacrilegious, there's Copper Prices. You got Nez, you got Andy who was hanging out there. Wu-Tang Killer Bees. We got Chris G. We got Numi and Fantasy Dog Pound there. So great crew yesterday. A ton of fun hanging out. And thanks again to Underdog for hosting a top-notch event. I need a little more coffee. All right, let's see here. Where's Nez? I just showed Nez. Nez is right here. Where is he? Right there in the white hat, right next to Copper Prices there in the back. Man, you guys are picky tonight, going after my mic, my voice. Now you said the coffee pour sounded more like a pee. All right. I am at the end of my coffee, so it did have a little bit of drip. Where did Nez finish? This is Nez's screenshot from his app. You can see here. I think it was Nez. I don't know if you're in the chat. I think it was 19th. I believe so. But yeah, it was tough. I mean, so many people were, dead pretty early. Dead as far as being live for first. There was obviously important ladder jumps, of getting up extra 5K, extra 10K. But there were so many of those first round picks who bombed. I felt bad for Chris G. I know, Sam Laporta was a pick that really hurt people. Basically, that entire Lions offense outside of Jahmyr Gibbs really disappointed. Yeah, there's Crutches in the chat there. Yeah, it was tough. A lot of those first round picks. I mean, I didn't even mention, Josh Allen didn't quite get there. It's just so hard when Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields, our second round picks, outscoring, Mahomes and Allen in the first. It's just a hard 2v2 to come back from. Nez finished in 22nd. Thank you. But yeah, just a lot of great teams, a lot of sharp drafters, really tough slate too. You just feel like, man, if you have a Justin Jefferson, right? And it's his first game back, and then he leaves the game early. It was just a lot of tilt. And I do give people credit, right? Because we all can like tilt in the comfort of our own homes, and you don't have to be worrying about, other people watching you or whatever, and having to do it in this event that's literally a party and people are drinking and watching the games. And yet you're naturally and rightfully so pretty depressed that your player is injured, not hitting or whatever, and to kind of just have to sit there, for 4 or 5 hours and watch it. It's not necessarily the easiest thing. So I do very much give credit to everyone for handling that gracefully, still enjoying the evening as much as possible. Even our guy GME Holder, he's in the Ship Chasing Discord. He was the only team that got a Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes swap or stack. In the way that final play worked, ended up costing him $10,000 because of that, Kadarius Toney offsides. And so you quickly realize the swings of just a couple plays on a really tight payout structure like that. And it was tough. There was a lot of bad beats, and that's what happens when a lot of really good drafters are competing. There weren't a ton of huge edges. Like you watch those drafts. I mean, we did a bunch of content recapping those, and I can't remember ever being like, oh my God, I can't believe that guy fell or whatever. If anything, it was the opposite. The players who projected really well were getting pushed up. Chad took Zack Moss in the first round, rightfully so. You saw, Chuba Hubbard, who was going in the 6th or undrafted in the goal line stands, went in the 4th round twice in these. And he projected for, 20 plus touches. And so anything that was projectable volume was getting aggressively targeted in a way that is different from a usual underdog draft, where people are far more anchored to ADP, are far more willing to lean into correlations and stacks. And here, everyone said, you know what, we're going to draft the best plays. We're going to chase the volume. We're going to chase the projection. And then we're going to let the chips fall where they may. So it was a very competitive draft room. And it was fun getting to see all the various strategies play out. I ended up having kind of a break-even day on Underdog as far as my drafts. I did not get in the same amount of volume that I normally do because I was there in Miami. Did get to 54 battle royales. I did 11 goal line stands, 5 of the fullback dives. Really liking that contest, that 5 max there. Had a couple in DeBomb, finished awful in DeBomb, well outside of the money there. But yeah, I'm honestly very grateful to have salvaged a near break-even day, because I'll show you my exposures from yesterday. And basically every guy was a total flop. Zack Moss, 52% exposure there. Keenan Allen, I was heavy on. I was drafting him aggressively like sacrilegious, taking him at 1-3, sometimes trying to push him and get various combos, but 43.8%, that doesn't hit. Was very heavy on Ayuk and Kittle. I felt pretty strongly that Ayuk was mispriced relative to Debo. I was wrong. Debo Samuel was the play once again. I continue to pick the wrong Niners wide receiver. Mike Evans was my 5th highest owned guy. That flopped. So the fact that I salvaged a break-even day with these exposures, Travis Kelce, I was on, did have a decent amount of Justin Fields, I guess that's about even the field when we factor in some of those draft percentages. I was on Diggs. Javonte was one of my favorite late round clicks, so that kind of worked out. Herbert, I was doing tons of, Keenan's backstacked with Herbert. Herbert wasn't getting drafted in the 6-man contest that much. So yeah, not a good day exposure wise. And it does, again, I know we've talked about this before, where the exposures are obviously important, but it's really about the teams that get paired together. My best team had a top 10 finish in the fullback dive, 8th place for 300. I had a Fields DJ Moore team here, James Cook, Austin Eckler, Brandon Ayuk, and Travis Kelce here. So this ended up being my best team. Did start to click James Cook a little bit towards the end. I think I used the Travis Kelce excuse to get a James Cook share here. Otherwise, grabbing the value on Eckler at 26. He ended up being fine. Like relative to that cost, like I would happily change all of my Zack Moss shares to Austin Eckler. In retrospect, he scores 10 more points there. And Brandon Ayuk, just too much Brandon Ayuk, not enough Debo Samuel. Preventing me from climbing to the top of the leaderboards there. I know Nez, even though he had a rough day, in the Dawg Bowl, had some nice cashes here, a 10th and 11th place finish in DeBomb. They're making it a profitable day for him. Really enjoying like the smaller contests. You can see just it's so much harder the way the battle royale, just the size of it, the payout structure, to consistently realize an edge. I mean, I still think there's a huge edge in those drafts, and I'll continue to pile in, but getting in some of these smaller contests, like, prioritizing the fullback dive, really saves, keeps the bankroll boosted there from an ROI perspective. All right. Let's, what else do we want to do? Yeah, I only have about 10 more minutes here and wanted to check in on some Best Ball Mania stuff. We obviously have 2 games tonight that will settle the regular season. Then we'll get those regular season payouts here. And so far, this has been a good week for me in Best Ball Mania. I will pull up what I got going here, and then I'll head over to the Best Ball Mania database from our guy Patrick Donovan here. Where am I? Best Ball Mania. So I am now up to I was looking at my Tyreek Hill. Let me just show my overall advance. I am up to 33 out of 150. I believe, just when I've reviewed on Mondays, I believe this is the most teams I've had advancing at any point all year. So up to a 22% advance rate. I am thrilled with that. I said all year when people would ask me, like, what kind of advance rate would you be happy with? And I was being dead serious. I would have been happy with an average advance rate. So I was like, as long as I can be in that 16, 17, 18% range, and just, if I'm battling against all these sharp drafters, and if I can just not run poor and just run average, I'll be happy. So to be, almost a full 5-6 points above expectation makes me feel very, very good. And, yesterday getting guys like Breece Hall and James Cook, who, they had flashed at moments earlier in the year, but had really cooled off. So to get big games from those guys who represent, a pretty big part of my running back portfolio, especially at the cost of Breece Hall, being I was taking him in the 3rd, I was taking him in the 4th, ended up having him on 26 teams. So I'm up to advancing 6 out of 26 of those Breece Hall teams for 23%. Feel good about that. Looks like we got a couple here that are on the edge. It'd be fun to sneak a few more Breece Hall teams in here. Man, one thing though, you go through these teams and it's so depressing at times, because you'll be like, oh, this one has Mark Andrews, this one has Justin Herbert, now that's dead. Sometimes you pull these up, like I just did this random Breece Hall team, and I'm like, this thing has some legs. It has the Lamar Jackson to Isaiah Likely. It has Zay Flowers on here. These wide receivers, though, are pretty trash, if we're being honest. Honestly, it's incredibly trash. Amon-Ra, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Alec Pierce, Tyquan Thornton, Richie James. Pure trash. Let's look at James Cook, though. He was another guy I was excited to see have a decent game yesterday. Had him on 25 teams, advancing 32% of those James Cook teams, 8 out of 25 there. He's coming on nicely. Here is a Breece Hall, James Cook. I think I remember this draft because I did the Cook brothers draft here. This one has much better wide receivers. AJ Brown, Amon-Ra, Debo, Lockett, Cooks, Mingo, and Shakir. Also a Dak Prescott team, which is always going to help out here. Dak Prescott stacked with, who do I have him stacked with? Cooks and Ferguson. Honestly, not a bad tight end room there. Kyle Pitts, Taysom Hill, Jake Ferguson there. I can go to my overall leaderboard. One bummer thing, I had 5 teams, I think, in the top 10K last week. I'm down to 3 here. My best team does still have Tyreek Hill and Raheem Mostert to go tonight. So, some decent pay jumps, right, when you get up into the top 1,000. So it'd be nice if this team could crack a little bit higher. This is one of those where it's like, this is my regular season horse here, and that I don't have a lot of hope for it in the playoffs. Christian Kirk now done for the year. I guess I should have a little bit more hope for this team. I don't know. Tony Pollard and Josh Jacobs, it's just so hard to get excited about those guys, but maybe I'm underselling this team. Tua, Dak, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, P. Ryan, Raheem Mostert, Tank Bigsby, Chuba Hubbard, Tyreek, Christian Kirk, Godwin, Evans, Zay Jones. I guess Zay Jones can backfield Christian Kirk. All right, I'm changing my tune. This team can make some noise. Michael Gallup had a pretty nice game last night. Marvin Mims, Jaden Reed, TJ Hawkinson, Jake Ferguson. All right, this team's fine. I think I just see Tony Pollard and Josh Jacobs, and I'm like, this team's trash. Yeah, I haven't seen an update on Jacobs. I know he left the game early yesterday. Amon-Ra is a monster. What are you talking about? He was not a monster yesterday. And I think the Lions, let's be honest, the Lions are pretty fraudulent. They're front runners when things are going good and they're in the dome. You know, they can cook a little bit, but man, they have had some bad beats, some bad losses. They do not strike me as a team that is going to make a run here. Obviously, guys like Amon-Ra and Laporta can still have spike weeks, but it's not like I'm looking at my Amon-Ra St. Brown teams and being like, all right, I'm going to, go on a 3-game heater here in the playoffs. Let's look at their schedule. Maybe I'm being too hard on them. But I don't know. I'm just down on the Lions right now. Okay, they're home versus the Broncos in the Dome. That'll be nice. On the road, divisional matchup against the Vikings, and then on the road versus the Cowboys. This seems like a spot where we all got excited looking at it. Lions, Cowboys in the Dome, right? That was one of our Week 17 bro one. They're going to get absolutely smacked by the Cowboys. So there's the hope. You get Amon-Ra St. Brown to the finals, and then he scores 3 points because Jared Goff crumbles under pressure against the Cowboys. So yeah, as far as like sweats tonight, I do have, let's see my like Tyreek Hill, Achane teams. I don't have a ton of Tyreek Hill, so I don't have a ton of Tyreek Hill, Achane. Only 2 teams. I mean, is this even with these two? Can you come back from 77 behind with Tyreek Hill and Achane to make the playoffs? This Tua, Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder has Achane, Warren, Gainwell, Roshan, Zamir, Chuba, Patterson, Tyreek, Devontae. Ooh, does have Drake London, JSN, Jahan, Quentin Johnson. See, these are the kind of teams that are depressing, right? And you see this team has Mark Andrews here. This was a weird team. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wide receivers. So I did the true zero RB here. I mean, God, this team, like the overall construction of this team is pretty hot. Tua, Sam Howell, there ended up being nice picks. It's just the Mark Andrews landmine there really stings. Otherwise, a team like this where you get Achane, maybe get Warren coming on a little bit. Roshan kind of regressed, right? Deontay Foreman led that backfield yesterday. Chuba coming on. I do like this overall construction. It was hard for me to draft a lot of teams like this in my rooms because I wasn't often able to get a Tyreek Hill, Devontae, London, although I guess I'm reaching here to get JSN at 5'3". This might have been a team I drafted with Sean. Actually, I'm guessing this is a team I drafted with Sean. It just looks like it. I'm trying to think what other guys I have going tonight who could maybe push me up. How much Jordan Love do I have? Only 12 shares of Jordan Love, advancing 3 of 12. Have a couple here within striking distance. Who do I have him stacked with? Man, look at this running back room. See, this team's just dead. Ramondre Stevenson, ETN, J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert. Can we talk about how sad this run out has been from DeAndre Swift, man? He looked so explosive earlier in the year. I remember watching him in that Thursday night game against the Commanders early on. And I know the Commanders make everyone look good, but like DeAndre Swift looked shot out of a cannon on a lot of those early season runs. And I just don't see the burst with him of late. I know some people have tied it to Jalen Hurts being a little banged up, not doing as much as the RPO stuff. And so he's facing, tougher boxes, not as many easy looks. I don't know, but it's been bummer because it seemed like DeAndre Swift was going to be a league winner at his draft cost, 7-12 here, early 8th round pick. And he has really fizzled out. I guess the entire Eagles offense has kind of fizzled out. Nice to see Garrett Wilson have a decent game. I mean, he's a guy that I was heavily exposed to. And it's just been such a frustrating year for him. Yeah, only, I guess, advancing at about expectation there, 4 of 24, 16.7%. Do I have any Garrett Wilson teams in striking distance with guys going tonight? This is kind of a nice tight end combo here. Njoku, Laporta. But man, how many of these Ramondre Stevenson, Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins? I mean, this entire running back room. I know Travis Etienne's not done for the season, but it honestly seems like he might as well be with how they're playing right now. Way too much Ramondre. How many Ramondre J.K. Dobbins teams do I have? Just because we're feeling masochistic. Okay, only 2. Only 2. I just happened to pull one of those up. What's my Ramondre advance rate? Yeah, 3 of 21. Yikes. What's my Jonathan Taylor advance rate? 4 of 16. That's kind of a crazy. Oh, one of my top. That's brutal. One of my top 10K teams is a Jonathan Taylor team. Oh, this is the Swolecast 4 tight end team. Jalen Hurts, Tua, Baker, JT, Brian Robinson, Eli Mitchell, Tank, Raheem Mostert. So we're going to need Brian Robinson and Raheem Mostert to carry this. Tyreek Hill, Hopkins, Godwin, Evans, Elijah Moore, Zay Flowers, and then Schultz, Hill, McBride, Kate Otten. Ugh. The one nice thing, I mean, the way these pod structures work, right? And we say it all the time. The lineups you like now are not the good ones. It's trying to sneak in as many of the bad ones as you can, get the unique low-owned pieces, and then you just run like the sun. That's what we're all trying to do. It is fun to like tab through these, but you know, you look at like a lineup like this, you're like, oh, my top 10,000 lineup. And I'm like, this lineup's doing jack shit in the playoffs. It's doing nothing. But yeah, on the whole, feel pretty good about the advance rates. It would just be fun, like everyone, right? Have a little sweat. My realistic expectations for a sweat is I would just like to have 1 or 2 that are live in week 16 to advance. So basically a week 16 sweat. It's going to be so fucking hard just to get a single team to the finals. I'm lowering my expectations of just wanting a sweat in week 16. That's where I'm at right now. So I don't know how all of you guys are prepping yourself mentally for the best ball playoffs, for the cruelness of the pod structure and all of that. Let me know in the comments. What are you doing to get your mental house in order for the Best Ball Mania 4 playoffs? I am going to actually have a lot of fun sweating some of my higher stakes and mid stakes ones, just because those ones feel more attainable. Have some good teams like in the Mastiff and the Bulldog. This was a team we did with some ship chasers hanging on to advancing right now with the top 6. One of my favorite teams was a Rottweiler team here. That's in first. Both of my Bulldog teams are advancing. So hopefully, even if I flame out in Best Ball Mania, some of these other ones can give us a sweat here. I drafted a team with Michael Dubner, but that one has Herbert and Pickett at quarterback. So that team might just be dead. That team might just be dead. This is my other one here. This was the one that I actually think could be fun. I think I wrote this one up for Fantasy Life. I did an article on this one. It was a slow draft Bulldog. Has Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy. That feels hot. Kenneth Walker, Antonio Gibson, Pirine, Achane, Kendre Miller, Jerome Ford. So basically need Walker to stay healthy and then just let Achane and Ford cook. Has CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel, Deontay Johnson, Zay Flowers, Elijah Moore, and Redacted. The audio listeners, you can figure that out. But yeah, the CD Deebo combo is pretty hot. And then at tight end, Laporta, Likely, and Gesicki. And I remember doing the backdoor Lamar Jackson stack on this one, tossing on Likely super late there. That thesis kind of playing out. Gesicki a dud. Gesicki hasn't scored a single point for me this year, but Laporta Likely fine there. I do like this team here. Think it could make some noise, shaping up pretty well. I mean, I was looking at the Niners schedule earlier. I mean, their schedule is filthy. If you have Niners players right now, you get week 15, they play the Cardinals, who just give up so many fantasy points. Then they have a shootout game against the Ravens. And if both those teams get pushed in week 16, that could be fun. And then week 17, they get the Commanders. So, man, these Niners teams are going to finish very hot. I would be excited about any Niners I was getting through to the sprint. Don't do this to me, Kirk. He says Redacted looks great. All right, I appreciate you guys hanging out, pushing through mic issues, voice issues, all of that good stuff. I got to head over and do XM. I'll be in the Discord later this afternoon, share some Showdown stuff I was trying to check in. What are people playing? Are people doing the 2-gamer? Are they doing Showdown? Are they doing everything? I'll huddle in there and we'll share some stuff and get some lineups going. And then I will be going to bed early tonight. Best of luck for all of your final sweats here for Best Ball Mania, all of your other contests here as you try to squeeze in a few more teams. We will keep this show rolling again next week, of course, and throughout the season. I believe I have a pretty normal programming schedule this week. So I will see you around. Best of luck tonight. Peace.